morning. So on your tables should be some stylus pens. So if you don't have a smartphone, you probably want to get one. So there are also pens as well. And there should also be handouts on your tables. Can I just see, like, who's in a service business? Anybody in, okay, thank you. Anybody in retail? Okay. We actually do both. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we'll get started. So we do finance, marketing, and business planning. So some of our clients are looking to maybe move or grow a business, sell a business, and they need to do some financial information either for the bank or just for themselves. Some of our clients have gotten into a little bit of tax problem, and they need some help with getting that straightened around. We also do marketing. So we do everything that you can imagine in marketing, from putting your name on a brochure and branding yourself, websites and social media. So, and obviously stylus pens. And then as far as business planning goes, we have a client just recently that was moving their business, and the landlord wanted the rent to be here. The client wanted the rent to be here. The rent ended up being here. And in fact, the landlord ended up giving more than what we had asked for because we had negotiated on their behalf. So this was just some examples of what we do for clients. And today we're going to talk about pricing your stuff. And I call it stuff because that's really what it is. So I have two pens in my hand. One is the stylus pen, and one is just a regular Thule click pen. Now I ask you, which one would you pay more for? And how much would you pay for it? All right. Hopefully you agree with me that it's okay to make money. Does everybody agree with that? Is that okay? Okay. Actually, the IRS hopes that as a sole proprietor or whatever type of business that you are, that you do make money. And the reason for that is because then you pay taxes, and that's how they make money. Okay? So it's okay. And one of the things that I'm hoping you'll take from this is that it is okay to price your product. Hi, Lisa. And it is great to make money, okay? To tell you a little bit about myself, I started in business in 1985. And I started my first business, and it was a video store, and it was in Oberlin, Ohio. I had partners, I had an ex-husband, and I bought them all out, okay? And in 1995, about 10 years later, I sold the video store. Then I did some contract work for like 10 years, and we've been doing this for 12 years now, starting in July. So what we do is, our slogan is to help clients make more money, and that is definitely what we do every day. So it's okay for you to make money. Does everybody agree with that now? Okay, great. Now, what I want you to do is stay in the game, okay? Anybody feel like maybe they're underpricing their product? Okay, thank you for being honest.
But it's a separate business. I've got my insurance business.
50. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's a great learning experience. So most of our clients, when they start out being a client, they do underprice. And part of the reason why is there's a bunch of psychology associated with that, but in my opinion, they probably underestimate the value of the product that they're selling, whether it's a good or a service. And a lot of our clients just want to be in business. You know, I was chatting with someone earlier that, and we have a lot of clients that are in the contractor business. They work for somebody else. They just really either didn't like working for somebody else, or they wanted to work for themselves. They wanted the flexibility. Everybody says, oh, you're self-employed. You get to work whenever you want, right? I did take yesterday afternoon off, and I felt guilty about it and worked the entire time I was gone from my phone. So, you know, that's part of what you do when you're self-employed, right? But underpricing is a huge thing, and a lot of folks will make their product seem a little more cheap, if you will. Some of the psychology behind pricing is customers will look at if it's a product or service, and they have a perceived value of what that's worth. Would you agree with that? Okay. Just like in the exercise that we did with the pen. This young lady was willing to give me $2, thank you very much, and this lady was willing to give me $1, okay? 2 different pens, and they have different purposes. By the way, you didn't tell me how much you would pay for it.
Oh, I'm a $2.
Okay, $2, thank you. All right, so probably that pen is worth maybe somewhere around $1.50 to $1, okay? Would you agree with that? So when you're pricing your product, one of the things that you need to keep in mind is, what are your competitors charging, okay? I will be honest, when we first started 12 years ago, we were doing consulting services for 4 hours for $95. Now let's be honest, that's pretty inexpensive, okay? We now charge 8 hours for $450, okay? Or 6 hours for $450 rather. But the point is that we've continued, that's the other thing I want to talk to you about, is increasing your price. Raise your hand if you increase your price. How often? Annually? Is there any science to you upgrading your, or updating your price, increasing your price?
Our costs. Our
Okay.
costs go up on average.
And may I ask what you do?
I work for a CPA firm.
Okay, you work for a CPA firm, and which costs go up? Like the software, or?
Yeah, our software is going up, our supplies, our human capital are going up. People want raises every year.
Yes, they do.
Our rent, our
Okay.
utilities, everything goes up on average about 3% each year. Unfortunately, we have to extend that on to our customers.
And then do you increase your price 3%?
Around there.
Okay, so close there
Very close to
or,
our
or over?
price, right.
Okay.
So theoretically, we're not making any more money. We're just keeping the profits relatively the same.
Right. Right, so your net income, bottom line, is about the same from year to year, even though your price goes up.
That's right.
Okay, so how do you make more money then if you're doing that?
Increase their costs more. And drive your internal costs down in some
Right,
fashion.
so absolutely. I mean, the way you make more money is you either make more revenue or you reduce costs, right? I mean, we all know that, right? So, but if you're not increasing more than the 3% that you're going up, you're not going to make more at the bottom line, right? So something to think about. Does anybody feel like they're underpricing? Wish your bottom line was bigger? Yeah? No? Yeah?
Sure, I'd like my background.
What do you do? May I ask what you do?
I have a Jimmy John's.
You have a Jimmy John's. Oh, cool. My husband loves to say Jimmy John's fast 3 times. He actually does. And so you have this one here?
I do.
Okay. And so that's a very good example because at a Jimmy John's, that's a franchise, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so there's a franchise fee, right, which is a fixed cost, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then so you can't really change, you can't raise your price.
No, I can't.
Oh, you can?
I can.
Okay. So how does that work? Explain to us how that works.
Okay.
Okay. So do you folks get together and chat about pricing and business strategies, or?
We get together, but mostly what we talk about when we get together is advertising.
Okay.
Where are the money, the local advertising money going to go?
Okay. Do you advertise together as part of a co-op?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Does anybody else want to share? Have you increased your price? You stayed steady? Like 2008 was a rough year, I know. So we actually had clients in 2008 and 2009 that increased because we were still marketing during that period of time. Anybody else market during that time?
I started during that.
You started during that time. And you do lighting? Okay. Have you increased your price since then?
Yeah, the process.
Right. Did everybody hear what he said? He sells lighting, commercial lighting, and he basically just covers his costs with a little markup. Isn't that what you said? Not necessarily all of your
We make our money
overhead.
Just on a margin on the lights that we sell.
Yep.
But we do all this detail work of design and all that we don't really charge for.
Right. And there's there a particular reason why you don't charge for that?
People aren't expecting to pay for that. You know, they just want to know how much is it going to cost on a bigger building. So
Is-
we roll that in, you know, to a larger project. It just works as a
Okay.
profit.
Is that what they tell you? I mean, what I heard, what's your name?
Stuart.
So what I heard Stuart say was that he's doing a lot of legwork, design work maybe, planning and trying to research even, and customers aren't willing to pay for that. Does everybody agree with that? Does anybody agree with that?
It would probably be good to just put a price for that, and then if they don't wanna pay for it,
I would bundle. We bundle a ton of stuff. Some of the services that we do for clients, because many of them are small businesses. Of course, the SBA says it's if you're under $4 million, you're a small business, so that's pretty much everybody that I know. And so we'll bundle services. I would suggest that you add some dollars and start adding it. And it's harder sometimes to add it to existing clients, but you can add it to new clients.
ours is almost always new.
Yeah, well, I would start doing it today, maybe after lunch. Yes. And we do tell the clients what's all included. I mean, you know, I have some contractor people that it's like the too much information, not enough. Some folks give you everything down to how many bushes they put in your yard and what kind of bushes and even the species. But then you've got some other folks that don't give you any of that. So, you know, some of it is kind of being familiar with your client and knowing what they want and what they don't want. It's the same thing to me as, do I give them the invoice? Do I email the invoice? Do I mail the invoice? Everybody wants it a different way. Now I got people that want me to text them how much it is. So could you quote me via text? So, okay, and so anybody overprice? Anybody feel like they price too much? It's good that nobody feels that way. That's what I call Goldilocks Syndrome, okay? So you just want to be careful of that. I mean, but you can actually price too much. And I have an example. When I did some contract work for the Firelands Association for the Visual Arts, I'll tell you a quick story about these salad tongs. Okay, so we had these salad tongs and they were handmade and they cost us $7 a piece. Well, everybody kept saying, and since most of you are service, you may not be familiar with this term, they said just keystone them. Well, keystoning in retail is meaning double the price. Okay, so we charged $14.95. We were selling like 48 of them every week, and I was constantly having to give the vendor a new PO. They were handmade, but they had a company. So anyhow, we kept upping the price. We marked them to $15.95, we marked them to $6, we got all the way up to $22.95. And then they finally stopped, they didn't stop selling, they slowed down to where we were selling about maybe 24 or 36 a week. And then we backed it down to $21.95. Now if we had kept them at $14.95, you figure out the math of what we would have made on those in the margin. At $5 more, or guess it's $7 more, at $21.95, we made a lot more money. So I am giving you permission to raise your price and make sure that you're not too high or too low. And some of that is just by finding out what your competitor charges. I just found out, what's your name?
Eli.
Eli and I are actually competitors somewhat.
Okay.
And that's okay. But, you know, some of what he said about the market is part of what you need to know when you're pricing as well. I mean, around here, I know a lot of people in Lorain County, and you may too. So sometimes if you're doing things like, I got into tax trouble and I need help, they may not want to call me just because, they may want to call Eli because they know me, or they may want to call me because they know Eli. So that's also a factor that plays in on pricing that may have absolutely nothing to do with you or what you do. Would you agree with that? Okay. And it's not what you know, it's who you know. Whether you realize it or not, when I asked the questions about the pens, I was actually conducting a little bit of a survey, okay? I noticed that the ladies were the ones that answered the questions because the guys, and I do a lot of stuff for guys, I actually sponsor a professional race car, and the guys don't care, they don't have preferences, so typically. So, and that's not a stereotype, that's just a survey observation. So if you have not surveyed your customer to find out what their likes and dislikes are and what they're willing to pay for it, because you'd be amazed when you ask people how much they would tell you. Have you ever quoted a job and said, is there a budget that you need to stay within? Yes. Do you realize that when you do that, do people answer the question?
I didn't answer.
Oh, who said yes? Do people answer the question?
Guardedly.
Guardedly.
Like,
Yeah.
They're afraid of giving you too much information, but if they're gonna trust you to do work for them, they'll eventually seriously consider letting you know what their limits are.
Right. And sometimes it's a little bit of a game, because you're right, guardedly, I agree with that. So if it's a client that you've already done work for, they're going to be more eager to give you that dollar amount. That doesn't mean that you have to hit that dollar amount. You got to cover your cost, figure it out, and then make sure you're close to what they said, because they will pay something close and not necessarily less. It might be 10% more than what they told you, but it's close. You know, and the thing is that if you're negotiating a price, I think you need to be willing to throw out a price. People ask me all the time, I need 500 postcards. How much are those? I'm like, well, there's so many variables. What kind of paper, you know, what size postcard, you know, do you have art? Do we need art? Do we need to design a logo? I can't give you a quote right now for that because there's too many variables involved in that, okay? So if you're quoting what I call Johnny on the spot, which means right now because you want to get the job, you want to sell the light bulb, or you want to do the accounting, don't do it. Don't do it right now. But make sure you do it within 24 hours of when you talk to the person, okay? Do you agree with that? Okay, good deal. Anybody survey their customers? Yes, tell us about that.
We'll do that.
And I'm sorry, what's the product again?
I'd rather not discuss it.
Oh, okay.
It's,
It's on the QT.
Yeah,
He
right.
could tell us, but he has to, you know. Okay.
If you'd like, I'd love to talk with you.
Okay, great. But I mean, just going to your customer and finding out, you know, trade shows are actually a great place to survey people because you may never see them again. I mean, you're going to collect a bunch of business cards and you're going to give some out to them. I mean, you might get, you know, 1% of the people that will respond, but you can do surveys that way.
And I'm not,
Well,
Your sales are big.
yeah,
I was gonna say
yeah.
people buy based on emotion.
People buy based on emotion. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. I mean, the psychology and the emotion and all of that. I mean, how many, those of you that went to the Cavs parade last week, you know, I understand that you decided not to come here and maybe not go to work. That was a personal decision based on the fact that you were excited, right? And you wanted to get your butt down to Cleveland. I understand that. So you know, I always tell clients it's not about how much you make, it's how you spend it. You know, so that's an emotional response. And surveys are only good if the questions are good. You know, so open-ended surveys are not good. And I'll just tell you a quick example. I do some work for the Chamber in Oberlin, and we were trying to survey the customers, or the patrons rather, to find out where they heard about the summer concert series. And some people said, in fact, most of the people said, I just know. Now, we all know that that's not true. So, you know, you need to be careful when you're surveying what you're asking and what information you want to get out of the survey. If you're asking people about pricing stuff and whether they want to buy your product, make sure the questions are in line with that and they're not necessarily open-ended, but they're very specific. Yes? You did.
Or multiple choice.
Or multiple choice. Multiple choice, but also very specific, okay? So that there's not based on interpretation or emotion, okay?
Usually too, on a good survey, they ask you the same question in a variety of different ways, and that kind of takes the emotion.
Yes, that's a very good point. Did everybody hear what she said? They're going to ask the question a couple different ways, so that, and it's the same thing when you go to do those job surveys, where they try to find out if you're going to be a good employee. They do those as well. So we're down to like 10 minutes left. So I want to quick go through these. So does everybody know what a fixed versus a variable cost is? And if you're in a service, you still have those. Okay. And I wasn't sure who the audience was when I did the handout, so I apologize if we already know that. So that's cool. Markup and margin. Are we good there? Anybody got a question on that? I can't tell if you don't respond. Fixed costs and variable costs, markup and margin. You good? Okay. Are you familiar with your competitor? Who is your competitor? Who else goes around videotaping houses for realtors?
There's only, my competition is a little bit different.
Your competition, what do you mean by standard photographer? Just a
Like a
regular
regular
photographer,
photographer that comes in and does
which
still
may not
photos.
do video, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah, so they're going to do still shots,
Yeah,
and
so
that's
my
really
main
not
which isn't
competition.
really- yeah,
Okay, so what's your name?
Derek.
Derek said earlier, if you recall, that he doesn't think he charges enough, but he only has one competitor in Cleveland. So I think you probably need to think about joining the Lorain County Realtors Association and going to some of their events, because there's a whole bunch of people in that room that you might want to meet. Okay, but if you don't know your competitors, I just met one, and I'm happy to know Eli. So does anybody have a unique business where they don't have a competitor at all? You're in the lighting business, so I'm sure you compete with the internet.
Nobody competes a lot more than,
Right, so you know about all the LEDs and shortcuts and what's best and lasts the longest. Yes, so he would be a good person to partner with a bunch of electrical contractors and electricians and things like that. That's absolutely right.
I want to say one thing.
Sure.
The other thing I know is you're competing with movie theaters and, I don't know, ice skating rinks and all the other dollars. So you got to think larger than just your head-to-head competition, but who's competing for those same budget dollars?
Lisa's absolutely right, because did I tell you that my first business was a video store? And I did not only compete with, so we were the original video store, and then there was at one time 6 other video stores in Oberlin. And we were competing for all of those disposable income dollars. Going to the baseball game, going out to the movie theater, going on vacation, all of those things. So she's absolutely right, and I totally agree. And you need to be aware of that. So, even if the person is selling lighting, you're also competing with the person who sells other things like maybe they can go to Home Depot, absolutely. Because it's all going to be one budget dollar at the end of the day, and it's going to be spread out over a bunch of people. Okay. Anybody subscribe to trade magazines? Did you know that there are trade magazines for every type of business that exists? And if you don't know that, I suggest you find out and subscribe to them. They are free to business in the trade. You just have to prove that I go to the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show every year in Indianapolis because I sponsor a race car. And when I go there, I actually go to some of the educational sessions and find out things that I can pick up and use for my clients. And then I also go to some of the booths, and there's some opportunities there. I'm not necessarily going to be buying some cylinder heads, but I am going to be talking to sign people, backlit sign people, LED sign people that clients want, and I get commission on some of that stuff because I just sell it for the vendor. There's all kinds of ways that you can, make money and sell your stuff. And if you don't belong to, if you don't subscribe to a trade magazine, definitely look into one in your field. And there's probably more than one. Go up or go home is what I put in the handout, which is basically, you need to, and it kind of goes back to the raising your price. We did small and slow and steady. And I told you how much I charged when in 2014, or excuse me, 2004 rather, and it's no science. We just raised our price $5 an hour. We tell clients in October, it kicks in February. And we've been doing it through 2008, 2009. Have we lost some folks during it? Yes, we have lost a few folks. I'm not going to tell you we didn't. But overall, have we increased? Yes. we've increased double digits every year, and we have clients that do that as well. Yes.
Well, there's some truth in that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want you to make it about price. I went to a seminar where the guy said, "How often do you get every job that you quote on?" And I said, "Well, we're lucky that we get about 95% of what we quote on." And he said, "You're not charging too much. You're not charging enough." He told me I wasn't charging enough. So I'm telling you that you may not be charging enough.
Here's the most important thing, you hate to lose them, but
Well,
the
yeah.
customers that are not paying you for the full value for your service want something cheap. And so
That's
okay if they go.
true.
Because
That's
you're gonna end up with only customers that are willing to pay what you're.
Yes, I agree. I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. I agree, but you also can't go from charging $50 to charging $500. I mean, and you mentioned 5 years and 1 increase. I mean, we have clients that will say, well, we haven't raised our price, so we're going to raise it, a ton.
Oh, a little bit.
I mean, a little bit.
Sure.
Every year. I have a client that's in retail that actually we raised her price above suggested retail 0.5% in January and in July every year. And I've been doing work for her since 2005.
And she's willing to pay for your services. for what
And
they're
she's willing to pay for my services. Yes. And she's growing at 30% a year. So,
Especially in the business-to-business type prices for their clients too, so.
yeah, but and that's a good point. And we've had many clients that once we've encouraged them and actually raised the price, they want to do it again. Like almost instantaneously. And I'm like, and I've had, one of my clients is a hair salon, and, she actually started the business. Her mom had the business originally, and then the mom's health declined, so they closed the business, and the daughter took over in a different location. In the previous business, they would put a sign up that said, "We're really sorry. We have to raise your price effective." I said, "Don't put that sign up. Don't put that sign up." Apologizing for raising your price is not, is not a good plan. I mean, you need to train them. I say that employees and clients are kind of like kids. You need to train them. So if you train them that they're going to regularly get an increase, and it's a reasonable amount, if it's 3% or whatever it is, just do it. And the other tip is do it during your slowest time of the year. So like, for example, in the hair salon, the slowest time of the year is October. So we actually don't wait till October. We raise the price like in August before back to school. And you'd be amazed, as long as it's a small amount, it's reasonable, and you can justify it, people do not mind, and they expect it. They really do expect it. What they don't expect is when you're going to raise the price because you haven't in 5 years. That's when you're going to lose them. And then mark it down, move it out. So I know there's no one here in retail, but are you familiar with the term onesies? Okay, well, I'm going to teach you another retailing term, actually one that I made up. So onesies in retail is when you have one. There's one left. And we are still, the psychology of human shopping, we do not want to buy the last one. Okay? And I actually learned this at the video store because we used to sell candy. And my employees would give me a hard time because they said, "Shirley, why are we selling all this candy?" And I said, "We net $2,000 a month in candy." That was back in 1985. And you know what they said? "Let's get some more candy." But what we would do is when we got down to like the last Reese cups, we would put them in a bucket on the counter and we mark them. They cost us $0.25. We sold them for 50 cents. We would mark them $0.25 because they were short dated or whatever. Or in the summertime, chocolate doesn't sell as well as it does in the wintertime. I don't know if any of you know that. But so we would mark it down and move it out. So if you've gone to a place and you've seen onesies, or what I call onesies, on the shelf, they need to be marking it down and moving it out. And the example that I would give in our line of work is when I first started, I met a gal who said, I want to do payroll service. Well, most of you have heard of, you know, the payroll services that are out there. And it's really hard to do all that and pay for people for like $5 a head. I don't actually know how they do that. And she was telling me, well, you know, you can sell payroll service to your clients and then you can farm it to me, and this is how much I would charge you. And we started that with her for about I said, well, we'll try it out for 3 months and see how it goes. I couldn't charge enough to cover her costs, and, you know, and it was too much work. And so I said, no, you know, this isn't working. So that was my example of marking it down and moving it out. We actually stopped doing that, and we don't do that. We do some taxes and things in payroll for a few clients, but it's extremely competitive. There's a very small margin, and I can't make any money at it. So I'm not doing it anymore. And so if there's things in your business that you're doing that maybe you shouldn't be doing, or maybe you need to farm out to somebody else, here's a good time for you to do that so that you can make more money. And that's all I have.